car loan crisis, what you can do to avoid falling behind.
So what's behind this? Experts point to higher borrowing costs, rising car prices, and unsteady employment. Repossessions for less expensive vehicles. Consumer spending is up, the stock market is going in the right direction, but when you focus in on the road, the numbers tell a different story.
Imagine this. You drive a 2021 Jeep Wrangler. You financed it for $42,000 in 2022 when the market was hot. The interest rate was 8.2%. Your monthly payment was $789. It seemed reasonable at the time. You had a decent job. You made the payments. The payments were tight, but you managed. Then 2024 hit. Interest rates stayed elevated. Inflation ate your paycheck. 1 month you missed a payment. It's not the end of the world, right? People miss payments all the time. Except the moment you hit 60 days delinquent, your lender filed a repossession order. 45 days later, your Wrangler was being dragged onto a flatbed at 6 in the morning while you watched from your garage. You lost $16,000 in equity. You lost your transportation. You lost 7 years of credit damage waiting in the wings. This is not a hypothetical scenario. This is happening to hundreds of thousands of Americans right now, but it's not happening equally across all vehicles. 12 specific SUV models are being repossessed at rates that are literally off the charts compared to sedan and truck markets. Here is the data banks are quietly sweeping under the rug. Repossessions are up 23% compared to last year. Over 1.8 million cars are estimated to have been repossessed in 2024. That's one repossession every 17 seconds in America. But if you look at the breakdown by vehicle type, SUVs are driving that number. Specifically, 12 models are the repossession crisis that nobody is talking about. This is the story of negative equity, payment shock, and a perfect storm of market conditions that turned certain SUVs into financial traps. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which 12 SUVs are being taken back at record rates, why banks are terrified to admit it, and what it means for the prices of those exact vehicles on the used market over the next 6 months. Let me start by breaking down why SUVs are different from every other vehicle category when it comes to repossession risk. SUVs cost more than sedans. That seems obvious, but here is what it means financially. A 2022 sedan might finance at $28,000. A 2022 SUV might finance at $39,000. That is an $11,000 gap. More expensive vehicles mean larger monthly payments. Larger monthly payments mean less margin for error when life happens. When you are financing a $39,000 SUV on a salary that is not growing, but your rent is, your healthcare costs are, your food bills are, you are living on a financial tightrope. One job loss, one major medical bill, one unexpected expense. That is the moment the SUV payment becomes impossible to sustain. SUVs also depreciate aggressively in down markets. When I say a vehicle is underwater, I mean the owner owes more on the loan than the vehicle is worth. A 2021 Toyota Highlander that was financed for $48,000 in 2021 is now worth approximately $31,500. The owner is $16,500 underwater. They are paying $850 per month on a vehicle worth $31,500. That is insane. They will never recover that equity unless they drive it payment-free for another 4 years. Most people cannot wait 4 years. They want to trade out, get into something new, get out from under a payment they regret. Except they cannot. They are trapped. The negative equity follows them like a ghost, rolled into every future car purchase, making every future payment more painful. When buyers are underwater and trapped, they start missing payments, not because they are bad with money, but because the payment no longer reflects the car's value. The car became a curse instead of transportation. The payment became a source of resentment instead of a normal monthly obligation. The timeline matters here. Look back to 2020 and 2021. Supply chain chaos. Used car prices were insane. Car lots were empty. Manufacturers had to charge premium prices for new inventory. Buyers, desperate for vehicles, accepted loan terms and interest rates that in normal times would be considered predatory. Interest rates that year averaged 6.8% for used car financing. That's almost 2 full percentage points higher than the long-term average. Now layer on top of that the fact that used car prices were 30 to 40% higher than they should have been. Buyers were getting absolutely hammered. They just did not know it yet. Fast forward to 2024. Interest rates are still elevated. Used car prices have normalized. The 2021 Highlander that someone financed for $48,000 is now worth $31,500. But they are still paying $850 per month at 7.1% interest. The terms of the contract have not changed, but the actual value of the asset has collapsed. That buyer is now the textbook definition of negative equity. They are trapped in a payment that no longer makes sense in a market that is fundamentally different than when they signed the contract. Quarterly data from Experian and Cox Automotive shows that delinquency rates on auto loans have climbed to roughly 5% across the market. But when you look at SUVs specifically, the delinquency rate is 6.8%. That's a 36% higher delinquency rate than the overall market. And it is concentrated in 12 specific models. This is not random. This is a pattern. This is a market signal that something is fundamentally broken in how these vehicles were financed. The specific financing terms that created this crisis are important to understand. In 2021 and 2022, lenders were offering 72 to 84-month loan terms on SUVs. That stretched the monthly payment down to manageable numbers on paper, but it created a payment schedule where buyers were underwater for the first 4 to 5 years of ownership. If they needed to exit the loan early, they could not do so without bringing cash to the table. Some lenders were also rolling negative equity from previous car purchases into these new loans, creating layers of underwater financing that made it impossible for buyers to recover. The first model is the Jeep Wrangler. Wranglers are iconic. They are also hideously expensive relative to their actual market utility. A 2021 Wrangler is an incredibly capable off-road vehicle. It is also a 300-pound per mile money pit. Insurance costs are high. Maintenance is brutal. Parts are expensive. Fuel economy is terrible. Yet in 2022 and 2023, they were flying off lots at $42,000 to $48,000 because demand outpaced supply. Now the market has corrected. A 2021 Wrangler is now worth approximately $32,000 to $35,000. Everyone who financed one in 2022 at $44,000 is massively underwater. Repossession rates on Wranglers hit 7.2% across lenders in the fourth quarter of 2024. That is a crisis-level number. That is 1 in every 14 Wranglers being repossessed. That is not a fringe phenomenon. That is a structural failure. The second is the Jeep Grand Cherokee. Similar dynamic. Premium pricing in 2021 and 2022. Massive depreciation since then. A 2021 Grand Cherokee that sold for $39,000 is now worth $26,500. That is a 32% value collapse. Buyers financed for $39,000. Buyers are now worth $26,500 on paper, and many are walking away. Repossession. Filings on Grand Cherokees are up 43% year over year. Lenders are seeing a flood of Grand Cherokees come back off the road. The third is the Ford Bronco. Remember when the Bronco came back? It was a sensation. Prices were insane. Ford dealers had waiting lists. People paid sticker. They paid over sticker. They financed $45,000 for a Bronco in 2022, thinking they would never regret it. A 2021 Bronco is now worth $28,900. That leaves a $16,000 gap. Buyers are underwater and angry. Repossession rates on Broncos are climbing as buyers default. The fourth is the Chevrolet Equinox. The Equinox was supposed to be the reliable, affordable SUV. Instead, it became the financial quicksand that dealerships pushed onto buyers with zero money down and stretched 72-month loan terms. A Chevrolet dealer in Texas told me that in 2022, they financed 340 Equinoxes. In 2024, they have received repossession notices on 44 of them. That is 13% of the vehicles they sold just 2 years ago. That is a warning bell, flashing red. Repossession rates on Equinoxes have hit 6.4%, and they are climbing. The fifth is the GMC Terrain. It shares a similar price point with the Equinox, and it shows similar underwater dynamics and a similar repossession crisis. Buyers were financed at inflated pandemic prices, and values have collapsed. Delinquency rates are up 38% year over year. This model is in the danger zone. Lenders are getting nervous about Terrain exposure. The sixth is the Kia Sportage. Kia vehicles are marketed as affordable alternatives to Toyota and Honda. Except during the boom from 2021 to 2022, they were not affordable. They were being financed at $36,000 for a compact SUV. Fair market value today is $23,400. That is 35% depreciation for a car that is only 3 years old. Buyers who financed Sportages in 2022 are some of the most underwater buyers on the market right now. Repossession data shows Sportage delinquencies are north of 7%. The seventh is the Hyundai Tucson. It is the same parent company as Kia, and it has the same problem, just a different brand. 2021 Tucsons financed for $32,000 are now worth $19,900. Underwater, trapped, delinquent, repossessed. The pattern is identical. The eighth is the Mazda CX-5. Mazda positioned the CX-5 as the sophisticated choice, with premium pricing and premium financing. A 2021 CX-5 that sold for $34,000 is now worth $22,100. Buyers are underwater by $12,000 on a car they are making an $800 per month payment on. That is 2 years of payment hell just to break even, assuming the car appreciates at historical rates. The ninth is the Subaru Outback. The Outback is marketed as practical, reliable, and competent. It is also expensive. A 2021 Outback financed for $36,500 is now worth $23,400. It is massively underwater. Repossession rates are climbing, as buyers realize they got into a terrible deal. The 10th is the Toyota Highlander. Toyota's reputation usually insulates them from this crisis. Not this time. The Highlander market is flooded. Supply finally caught up to demand, and prices have fallen. 2021 Highlanders that were financed for $48,000 are now worth $31,500. That's catastrophic negative equity. Buyers are furious, and they're also getting behind on payments. The 11th is the Honda CR-V. The CR-V should be immune to this. It's the gold standard of SUVs, except millions were financed at pandemic prices. Values have normalized. Buyers are underwater. Some are delinquent. Some are being repossessed. Even Honda's reputation can't save buyers from negative equity math. The 12th is the Ram 1500. Ram marketed the 1500 as a premium truck SUV crossover, and premium pricing applied. Many were financed for $43,000 to $47,000. Values have fallen, underwater, delinquent, in the repo pipeline. Lenders are getting calls from Ram buyers asking about loan modification programs. Right now, today in April 2025, there are approximately 340,000 vehicles eligible for repossession in America that are in the delinquency window. That means they are 90 days or more behind on payments. Of those 340,000, roughly 89,000 are SUVs from these 12 models. That's roughly 26% of all repossession-eligible vehicles. These 12 SUV models represent a disproportionate share of the repossession crisis. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern. That's a systemic failure in how the industry finances vehicles during boom markets, and then expects buyers to absorb the losses when markets correct. Here's where the timing gets critical. Repossessed vehicles start hitting auctions within 60 to 90 days of being towed. Those vehicles then get wholesaled to dealers and private sales channels within 30 days of hitting auction. That means the inventory of repossessed SUVs from this 12-model cohort is about to absolutely flood the used car market. Think about what that means for pricing. Right now, a 2021 Jeep Wrangler is still commanding $32,000 to $36,000 on the market. When 6,000 repossessed Wranglers hit auctions in the next 90 days, what happens to that price? It collapses. These are repo vehicles, and they are titled accordingly. Banks need to move them. They will price them aggressively. They will undercut dealer lots and private sellers. Pricing pressure will be immense. If you're thinking about buying one of these 12 SUVs, the next 90 days will be the single best buying opportunity you'll see all year. These vehicles are about to be available at wholesale prices through auction channels and dealer lots, trying to move off inflated inventory. You're looking at potential discounts of 15 to 25% below current fair market value when this wave of repossessions hits the market. But there's a darker side to this story. Every one of those 89,000 vehicles represents a human being who made a financial decision that did not work out, who got underwater, who could not recover, who lost a vehicle. That's a crisis. That's a failure of the lending system. That's a failure of the financing apparatus that puts buyers in impossible positions. Banks will not talk about this publicly. It is bad for business, and it raises questions about lending standards. It raises questions about whether lenders are adequately warning borrowers about the risks of negative equity, negative amortization, and stretched loan terms. It raises questions about whether the industry is designed to trap people, or whether it is just a byproduct of how the market works. The truth is somewhere in between. The industry is not designed to trap people, but it is designed in a way that makes trapping people very easy. Long loan terms hide the monthly payment impact. Multiple waves of incentives and rebates make prices look lower than they actually are. The gap between pandemic pricing and normal market pricing is so large that it creates invisible underwater buyers who do not realize they are trapped until it is too late. Here is what matters for you as a car buyer. Information asymmetry is your enemy. You are about to see one of the largest waves of repossessed SUVs hit the market in the last decade. If you are prepared, if you understand which vehicles are flooding the market, if you understand why they are underwater, if you understand the timeline, you have leverage. You can time the market. You can wait for the wave. You can buy when prices hit bottom. The 12 SUVs I outlined are going to be the cheapest SUVs on the market for the next 90 to 180 days. They are likely to carry repo titles in many cases. A repo title does not mean the car is junk. It means someone could not make payments. The vehicle itself is fine. The price is depressed because a large volume of identical vehicles is flooding the market at the same time. This crisis is not over. It is still developing. Delinquencies are still climbing. Repossessions are still accelerating. The wave has not crested yet. But when it does, when 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 of these SUVs hit the market simultaneously, prices are going to move fast. Right now, lenders are trying to manage the flow of repossessions slowly. If repossessions hit auctions too quickly, prices crash. If prices crash, lenders lose more money. So they are dragging out the timeline. They are holding vehicles longer. They are trying to meter supply to the market, but eventually they run out of holding capacity. Then they dump. And when they dump, that is your window. Remember the Jeep Wrangler buyer from the beginning. They lost their vehicle. They are going to lose their equity. They are going to take a credit hit that will haunt them for 7 years. But their loss is your opportunity. The industry is betting that you do not have the information to act on that opportunity. You do now. You know which 12 vehicles are flooding the repo pipeline. You know why they are there. You know when the volume is going to peak. You know how prices are going to move when supply accelerates. The second part of this story is even more brutal than the first. It is about gap insurance, underwater loans, and why banks are now seizing vehicles at the first missed payment instead of waiting. Here is the math that changed everything. In 2021 and 2022, during the pandemic, used car price spike, loan-to-value ratios got completely inverted. A buyer financed a 2021 Jeep Wrangler for $42,000 when the actual market value was $40,800. That buyer was instantly underwater by $1,200. Then the market normalized. That same Jeep is now worth $31,500. But the buyer still owes $38,200 on the loan. That is a $6,700 gap. And gap insurance, which is supposed to cover that gap, is now being denied at higher rates because insurers are drowning in claims. Gap insurance works like this. You buy a car and finance it. The loan amount is higher than the car's actual value because of fees and interest. You buy gap insurance to cover the difference if the car is totaled or repossessed. In theory, you are protected. But insurers have started to deny claims. A claim comes in from a lender saying a vehicle was repossessed and the sale price at auction was $8,000 less than what was owed. The gap insurance company looks at the claim and denies it because of technical language about vehicle condition or maintenance. They find a loophole. They do not pay. That gap goes back to the bank. The bank has now absorbed the loss. Multiply that by thousands of claims per month, and you are looking at millions of dollars in unexpected losses. Banks are getting furious, and they are changing their strategy. Instead of waiting for 3 or 4 missed payments before repossessing, banks are now moving aggressively after 1 missed payment. The logic is simple. Faster repossession means less depreciation on the vehicle. The car gets seized while it still has some value, and it goes to auction. Even if it sells for less than owed, the gap is smaller, less exposure, and less likely to hit a gap insurance claim threshold that triggers a denial. A loan servicer speaking to the Financial Times said, "We have tightened our repossession timelines significantly. We used to wait 120 days past due. Now we are starting repossession paperwork at 45 to 60 days past due. The market volatility is too high. Every day we wait, the car loses value. We cannot afford that risk anymore." This affects SUVs specifically, because SUVs have become the primary target for this aggressive strategy. SUVs are depreciating faster than expected. A 2021 Jeep Wrangler that was financed for $42,000 might be worth $29,000 after 18 months. That gap is enormous. Banks are terrified of that gap, so they are yanking vehicles back faster than ever. The 2020 and 2021 Ford Explorer, the 2021 Chevy Tahoe, the 2021 GMC Yukon, the 2021 Cadillac Escalade are all seeing spikes in repossession rates. Not because owners are more likely to default, but because when they do default, the gap is so massive that banks cannot wait. They have to act immediately. A Mannheim remarketing report from March 2025 showed that repossession volumes are up 34% year over year, specifically in the full-size SUV category. We are seeing cars come through our auctions that have only had 12 to 18 months of ownership, the report stated. That is unprecedented. The gap between loan amount and current market value is forcing lender behavior to change. And when those repossessed SUVs hit the auction block, they are often damaged. They have been driven aggressively by owners who knew they were about to lose them. The seats are worn, the tires are bald, and the transmission has extra miles and stress. Banks sell them at severe discounts. Dealers buy them at steep markdowns and resell them in their inventory. The used SUV market gets flooded with compromised vehicles. Prices compress. Competition heats up. Margins disappear. Buyers who can afford to pay their loans are seeing prices drop around them because of the buyers who cannot. The underwater loan problem becomes the whole market's problem. Something is still coming. The repossession wave is still building. The financial pressure on these buyers is still mounting. The flood is approaching. Be ready. The timeline of the repossession wave is crucial to understand. Most 2021 and 2022 vehicles that are now defaulting were financed with 60 to 72-month terms. Owners are typically 18 to 24 months into the loan. Banks are pursuing repossession aggressively at the 60-day delinquency mark instead of waiting. This means the vehicles are coming back while they still have reasonable mileage and condition. A repossessed 2021 Jeep Wrangler with 24,000 miles is worth significantly more than one with 45,000 miles. Banks know this, and they are acting faster to preserve residual value. But that faster action is creating a concentrated wave of repossessed inventory hitting auctions simultaneously, rather than a distributed flow over time. When repossessed vehicles hit auctions in concentrated waves, prices compress dramatically. Auction houses see identical vehicles landing on their blocks in batches. Buyers know it, dealers know it, and price competition becomes vicious. Lender losses accelerate. This dynamic will play out over the next 90 to 120 days as the 2021 to 2022 cohort of defaulted vehicles completes the repo to auction to market pipeline.